We are all born with a cerebral system like the core or CPU of a computer or mobile phone, with operating systems akin to Windows, Mac, Android, and so forth. Men and women are born with operating systems which are different but complementary to each other. As a consequence, generally speaking, men have an edge over women when it comes to mathematics and other scientific disciplines requiring logical and spatial thinking. Women, on the other hand, are more intuitive, loving, and non violent, though they contribute considerably to domestic violence, with a superior verbal agility which few men can match. Women are at a disadvantage when it comes to sports and athletics, since men are more naturally endowed in terms of their muscular strength. Consequently, men and women are segregated when it comes to competitive sports or athletics. However, I do not see why men and women cannot compete with each other in disciplines like chess and bridge, where physics does not matter. The answer may lie in the fact that games like chess and bridge are more adapted to the male cerebral operating system or software. There are many other fields where men have an innate advantage over men and vice versa. Along with our operating systems come software formed over millions of years of our evolution. Emotions like fear, love, hatred, selfishness, empathy, sympathy, intuition, logical thinking, and a thousand other instinctive and intuitive faculties, more than 95% of which we share with other animals depending on their degree of evolution. Of these basic instincts, fear and the resulting fight or flight response may be the most important ingredient of our psyche. Without fear and its fight or flight response, no human, animal, or plant can survive even for a minute. We have science fiction stories of robots and artificial intelligence enslaving human beings and putting humans to work for the welfare of these machines. This would be highly improbable as long as we do not put the elements of fear and insecurity into these machines, because as long as they do not have fear, they would walk as readily onto rushing traffic as into a bed of roses. According to Yuval Noah, one of the most important programs that comes with the human brain is our innate instinct to tell stories. Consequently, humans have been telling stories for tens of thousands of years for entertainment as well as to explain natural phenomena such as flood, drought, famines, diseases, violence, and other elements which were critical for the survival and propagation of our ancestors. Consequently, they spun stories about invisible spirits or anima which were behind the calamities which often disrupted their rhythm of life. This was the first or nascent form of religion. Anthropologists call it animism. Dreams of the dead also gave our ancestors infinite scope to spin stories about life after death and about how the spirits of the dead could influence our lives. All these stories depicted the spirits of nature, the souls of the dead, as well as their actions as the mirroring or mimicking the actions, emotions and thinking of human beings. This mental mechanism which projects human nature onto animals, supernatural spirits and other inanimate objects around us is called anthropomorphism. Consequently, they offered prayers and gifts in anthropomorphic fashion, to keep these spirits and souls in good humor. This was the origin of religion. Religion gave our ancestors some modicum of peace of mind, in their belief that the spirits and souls would protect them. These primitive religions did not lead to conflicts between people of different beliefs. However, they resorted to human and animal sacrifices and other practices which are obnoxious to us in the light of modern values. In this context, I may also say that animal sacrifice is still being practiced over much of the world, especially in Mecca and other places. Later on, priests, oracles, and scoundrels of every kind stepped into the picture, claiming that they represented the spirits and souls of the dead and that they could placate these spirits and souls so that these supernatural forces could be made to work benevolently. When these prayers and sacrifices failed to have the desired effect, these charlatans or priests spun more stories of sin and other factors which explained to the naive believers why their prayers and sacrifices were ineffective or why they were not answered. Further on, the priests offered more products or more sacrifices or more things to placate these gods to alleviate the anger of the gods on account of the sins and shortcomings of the devotees. And of course, in return for these new services or of amendment, they again extracted their pound of flesh. In fact, religion benefits only the priests. In those days, they had not invented writing, and so the stories of the spirits and souls of the dead, as well as stories of priests and magicians, were transmitted by word of mouth from person to person and from one generation to the next, as well as from one society to the next. However, each such transmission was prone to changes or distortions in fidelity. Consequently, over the 50,000 or more years of religions, millions of genesis, species and variations of religions evolved, and they go on evolving even to this day. During this process of mimetic evolution of religions, spirits evolved into anthropomorphic gods mirroring the patriarchs, matriarchs, heroes, and kings of the respective societies in which these concepts of God arose. Then some 5,000 years ago, man invented writing and arithmetic mostly for accounting purposes. The religious authorities pounced on these opportunities to compile and write down their religious superstitions. In order to sugarcoat the cruel and inhumane actions of their gods, they introduced the prevailing ethics and morals into these scriptures and taught their naive followers that without religion there would be no ethics or morals. What is more, these religious charlatans intimidated parents with dire consequences if they did not pass on these stories of the written books to their children and to their children and so forth. In addition, some or all of these scriptures were at odds with other scriptures arising from different interpretations of the same scriptures. These divergences between scriptures as well as their interpretation could not be resolved rationally. Consequently, they resorted to violence based on the divergence of their scriptures. After we are born with these apps and software which enable us to cooperate with each other, our parents and societies upload viruses which come attractively sugar-coated with prejudices based on color, caste, religions, languages and other factors. Of these one of the most dangerous viruses which turn man against man is religion, which has caused considerable violence over the centuries. What is more, this poisonous virus of religion comes, as I said, sugar-coated with what sounds like morals and ethics. Accordingly, religions teach that without religions, we cannot have ethics or morals. And people swallow the poison without realizing the fact that men and women have been guided by morals and ethics which have evolved into present state after millions of years of mental evolution, whereas most of our present religions have been around only for a few thousand years after men learned to write and compile books full of myths and directives which were relevant to the age when these books were compiled. In fact, I am inclined to think that it was after committing the myths as well as ethics and morals of these times to writing that most of our aggressive religions evolved into their present nature of intolerance and violence. As a result, all religious violence we witness today are caused by these scriptures or books which resist change and modification in tune with the evolving societies. After we are born with the above operating systems and software, our societies and families start uploading other apps and software into our brains, apps and software which help us to smoothen our lives for the future by integrating and synchronizing our actions with the ground realities. This is especially so when it comes to integrating and synchronizing our activities with other societies conditioned to cerebral viruses which are often different and at odds with our own conditioning viruses, so that we cannot cooperate with each other to a global level and build win-win relationships with others who differ from us in their viruses. We saw above that humans have been transmitting all kinds of information horizontally to people of our generation and vertically to future generation. This goes for religions and their viruses too. In this, women play a strategic and pivotal role. Women feel more insecure by their nature and consequently are more inclined to trust in gods and the security these gods provide. That may be why women outnumber men in places of worship. What is more, women play a critical role in transmitting these cerebral viruses onto the next generation and conditioning the children to these cock and bull stories of religion at a very impressionable age when the children cannot discern fact from fiction. Obviously, women play a very critical role in sustaining these viruses of religion and their violent consequences. Jonathan Swift mocks at this everlasting violence over illogical scriptures and their cock and bull stories in his famous work Gulliver's Travels, wherein the 6-inch Lilliputians are ever at war with their neighboring islanders of Blefuscu over whether the large end or the small end of the egg should be broken. Both these people of Lilliput and Blefuscu follow the teachings of a prophet called Lustrock, as recorded in their scripture. The scripture was known as Blundakral. However, their different interpretation of the same book led to centuries of wars between them over issues like which end, the small end or the large end of the egg should be broken to make an omelette. The conflict was also based on other issues like whether high-heeled shoes should be worn or low-heeled shoes should be worn, or whether buttons should be sewn on the left side of the shirt, the flap of the shirt, or on the right side of the shirt. Thousands died in the conflict over these issues, which may sound silly to us. And there were many martyrs who refused to change their opinions. Hundreds of books were written on these issues, and both sides banned and burned the books by the other side, and put to death those who kept copies of the book by the other side. These issues, which led to the deaths of thousands of people of the two islands and left their economy in tatters, may sound ridiculous to us. However, on second thinking, we are no different from these 6-inch people. When we argue whether there is one God or many gods, though gods being ethereal cannot be counted, whether Mary was a virgin, whether Jesus really comes down during Holy Mass or whether it is only a representation, whether the angel Jibril or Gabriel visited the earth about 6,000 times to transmit the verses of the Quran, when God, omnipotent as He is, could have transmitted the Quranic verses directly without a go-between like Jibril. There are so many cases like this in the old scriptures where it doesn't make sense. In short, though religions and mythical beliefs come natural to us, trying to make them sound logical leads to avoidable conflicts, bloodshed, and poverty, as in the conflicts between the puny and harebrained people of Lilliput and Blefuscu. So, go on believing in any book or its contents, but do not ever try to argue that the So go on believing in any book or its contents, but do not ever try to argue that these mythical stories of these scriptures are true or they can be of any benefit to us. In fact, they have caused more bloodshed on this world, though they claim all the time that their religions are the harbingers of peace and goodwill on earth.